Writing nonfiction narrative, how to spice up your helpful information. Welcome everyone to another session of Walking with Randy, where we talk about writing, speaking, coaching, marketing, and marriage. Today we're talking about writing. Would you like to know how to get more people to read your helpful many people? He had very helpful information that he knew could help many people, but he could not get many to read. Whenever he would go to his analytics, there were not nearly as many views of his articles that he would have wished. Well, then he tried some different things. First of all, he started off telling at the beginning of his article why the reader should read it. Then he went to his analytics and he found that the number of views jumped up a little bit. Then he heard even more about that whenever he was talking about why someone should read the article, that he presented the problem, and he decided that he would agitate that problem a little bit before he gave the solution. When he did that, he went to the analytics, and he was very hopeful. He clicked the button and he looked, and he was disappointed. Well, it still, though, was better than what it was. Then his friend John came along and gave him just one helpful suggestion. And then after the next month, he found that his views had risen dramatically. And there was just one simple suggestion that caused that to come about. John simply told him to add some stories. Well, we're talking about writing nonfiction narrative. Of course, the word narrative there is where the storytelling comes in. Well, let's look at the definition. This would be like historical fiction, or one of those, and maybe in its truest sense, it would be one narrative that would go throughout the whole article, story, or book. But there's another definition, and that is facts told as story, or facts that are illustrated by a story. So and that's the one that I'm focusing on. That's the one that helped Bill's views to jump dramatically. Now, you've probably discerned by now that Bill and John are a composite of many different people, and yet these ideas are very true. One of the first way is to tell your own personal narrative, tell your own personal experiences. The second one is tell the experiences from your clients or your friends. Now, you have to be careful with this. If you have been engaged in confidential discussions and you don't have permission to use their name, then you must change the name and some other elements to present the facts, but to protect the innocent, or sometimes the guilty. Well, sometimes, though, you will have permission to use other people's stories, and so you can do that. So you have a personal narrative, stories from clients, or you can have fictional characters that are composites of many clients. They have true characteristics. The facts, the things that are involved are true, but the character is a fictional character that has those true characteristics. Okay, what are some elements of good narrative? The first one has to do with the setting. They were standing in the desert. They'd been there for several hours. The sun was going down. Though they had been terribly hot, they had been told that the temperature could drop dramatically. There we are. We're in the beginning of the setting for a good story. Helps you to identify with your audience. And in the case of nonfiction, then you want to introduce a main character. Since you're doing these very short stories within the rest of your book, it's best to focus on one character. Now, you may have to introduce at least one more to have some type of conflict set up or to carry the story, but you focus on a single character. And then when you introduce another character, you can make the story more interesting by including their dialogue. You have the character or characters, and then you have the conflict. And the conflict is related to the pain. It is related to the problem. And the problem can be agitated. It can be set up. The conflict tells why there is a problem. And it's okay for things to repeatedly look like they're going to succeed and then fall apart. That makes for good fiction, doesn't it? So you have the conflict, you have the pain, you have the problem, and you have the tension and surprise. And at this point, you can put in additional characters, or sometimes it's man against nature, sometimes it's people against a certain situation. Then it builds to the climax. This is when the good finally triumphs. This is whenever the success finally overrules defeat. And this is where and what the solution is. After that, you don't really want to just cut it off abruptly. Sometimes you need to tie together the loose details. But the problem is solved. The satisfaction is there. Is where you dial it down a little bit, and perhaps you give a summary of the steps that were involved. So those are some of the elements of putting stories within your nonfiction writing. Most of us like stories, and stories will keep us involved. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this, that it's been helpful to you. Again, the elements of the good narrative are setting, character, conflict, climax, and resolution. Now, if you would like more tips like these on writing, go to randycarney.com. That's RANDYCARNEY.com. Another way is to go to randysblogs.com. And then I would suggest you go to YouTube, do a search on my name, Randy Carney, and you'll find most of these videos all in one place. While you're there, please subscribe so you can get back to it again. Well, I hope you have a good day, and until next time, for Walking with Randy, I'll see you.